This was started in 2017, and yes, we do know that there were some years that COVID was around. I know in, what was it, 2019, Linda, Roswell had professional development in it, and then we had COVID, and then it fell off, okay? So, we're all in the same boat here. And it isn't something that we're going to know inside out tomorrow. We have to chunk it and start with baby steps. There's going to be some key terminology that I want you to know. So when you hear your colleagues use the inappropriate terminology, you know that maybe that's a red flag for you and you have to share a little bit with them. Okay? So, here is New Mexico's multi-layer systems of supports. Do we have anyone in here from another state other than New Mexico? You've transferred in from another state across the United States, any of you? Okay. If you had, you would probably have already been used to what's called MT, as in Tom, SS, multi-tier systems of supports. The state of New Mexico, because of the Ozzie Martinez lawsuit, started doing a lot of research, and we're one of the last states, instead of going to MTSS because it's the tiered system, they decided to put a little adaptation on it, and they're calling it the multi-layer. So if you hear the term multi-tiered or RTI, that's a red flag for you that somebody's on the wrong page. Okay? Because you're still going to hear. I was on a Zoom meeting the other day with an employee of the New Mexico PED, and they kept referring to it as the RTI. Okay? So, RTI no longer is called multi-layer systems of supports. I want to show you something real quick. So here is the main information. You have have they all been given a manual yet, an MLSS manual? If not, I will forward that to Glenda and she will forward it to you. There's several out there on the website. If it does not say 2021, don't even open it up and look at it. Okay? So it's an MLSS manual 2021. MLSS is not the new RTI. So if you hear that, oh yeah, that's just like RTI. It's just the new RTI. No, it isn't. Or if they tell you that MLSS is the RTI on crack, no, it isn't. MLSS is MLSS. We no longer look at RTI. Okay. Here's the some of you, especially elementary teachers, a lot of times secondary, we didn't deal a whole lot with the tier systems unless our babies were in special ed or had an IEP or something like that. So our secondary, you know, some of this is great because it's new all the way around for them. Elementary, you're pretty used to the old RTI system. What happened was, we'd ship them over here to Tier 2, ship them to the SAT team, they'd have them tested or evaluated. If they qualified, now they're special ed Tier 3, and if they didn't, they're sitting here. There was no progress monitoring. There was nothing going on, and the SAT team is making all of the decisions, but the people in the trenches are the ones that want to make the decisions. So we had kind of an RTI model was a set up to fail model, really. There were kids, I can pull files of high school students to this day and see that they were in SAT in elementary and have not had anything done since elementary, if then. That's scary. Okay? So, this right here, that Tier 3, bam, gone. Okay? It's gone. Somebody tell me, do we have RTI in the state of New Mexico anymore? No. Give yourself a pat on the back. Thank you. I appreciate that. No. No. What are we calling it?
Analysis.
And what does that stand for?
Multivariate.
Thank you. Now, we do have 3 tiers of, or, I'm sorry, here I am. We do have 3 layers. Okay? And there's still movement. And we still have the opportunity to send students to the SAT team. We still have those opportunities to have some evaluations done, etc. But it's a total different process. The requirements are the same, but the process is different. Let me say that one more time. The requirements to ship a kid to the SAT team for evaluation is the same, however, the process is different. I'm not going to get into all that today, but for today's purposes, I want you to think about this. There's a reason that we watched that video, The Myth of Average. Let me hear. First of all, I want to know, because a lot of times it's that sit and get. I don't want these sessions to be a sit and get. I want the collaboration. In fact, I was even looking at the board from the previous training that they had today, or professional learning opportunity today, and up on the board was communication time. You guys work your rear off. And you don't have a whole lot of time for that interaction with one another. So what I want you to do is those of you that watch that video, I want you to think back on what Todd Rose said about average. What do we do in education that we have a tendency to look at average? I want you to think about that. What do we do within our education system? Not all of it, I'm not saying everybody, but what do we have as a system that we look at average? What? Also, here's another question. Does everyone, including adults, do we all have a jagged profile?
Yes.
Okay. I want you to have about a 45-second discussion, a minute at your tables. I want you to share some of your thoughts on that video and see if you made the connections as you were watching that. Okay, go ahead.
Designed at grade level. Does grade level kind of fit average?
Yeah, so the books are, that's what we talked about, the previous textbooks. So, and what is grade level? Because that's math. And is that averages, and this is the average height, and then when they track back to the
I'm gonna learn your name, Jeff. Your name is?
Tammy.
Tammy. She made a comment that caught my attention. She said, you know, we're no longer in these boxes. And I looked at her and said, good. She goes, but you gotta understand, see, I'm special ed. And I'm like, but have our students ever really been in boxes? We put them there, don't we? But are they really need to be in boxes? How many of you can't stand it when you're told a specific way to do something and that is not you? Okay? Think about your students. Okay, so did anybody want to share what they, other than what I just brought up, does anybody else want to share what was said at your table that might have been an aha moment for you? Or anyone at your table? Those conversations? Yes, ma'am.
We were talking about like the textbooks and like sometimes the set curriculum you're supposed to ask automatically assumes your kids are in that average box, and it doesn't meet kids where they are.
Right. So, and this lady, she's Tammy, and you're Melissa made a comment. She says, and I teach AP, so a lot of my students can read at quote unquote grade level. But let's think about some of this technology manuals in the sciences. Oh my Lord, I have to have my little dictionary when I'm reading because that text is so complex. There's very few that come in. Most of our textbooks for science is written at least a freshman, sophomore in college level. So if we don't have vocabulary attacking skills, wow, okay? Anyone else? Someone else want to share their conversation? Because guys, these are the conversations you're going to be listening to next week. Yes.
And we also talked about, like, I have a kid that can't even read in 5th grade, but yet they're expected to do 5th grade work. But yet she can't read, she can't write, but she's expected to be up here, and really she's just looking at me like, have no clue what you're saying.
So you said 5th grade. How many of you in here have 9th or 12th graders that can't read? How did they make it that far?
They get past that.
Yeah.
How did they make it that far without you? And think about it. You know, my heart goes out, and it even brings me to tears to think about some of those students that sit every single day in classrooms. They're not an attendance problem. They sit every single day knowing that they're fighting the battle that they can't read, and the intimidation and the embarrassment that they face. But they're there every dang day. Wow. So MLSS allows us to have those supports that we as teachers in the classroom can reach out and bring in without having to go through the SAT and an evaluation, because there might be a 5th grader, especially with COVID, there might be a sophomore in high school that's dyslexic and we didn't catch it. Have you looked at a dyslexia profile for middle and high school students? The way a lot of our kids act and don't show up fits the profile of a dyslexic student. So those are little things that we'll be discussing. Anyone else before we move on? Because this is yes, ma'am.
She said normal looks very different.
Pardon me?
Normal looks very different.
It's kind of normal. It's kind of like average, isn't it? What is it? Is there a quote unquote normal? We all have our definition of normal, don't we? Some of you are looking at me going, oh my Lord, that lady needs to get out there, and I think I'm normal. Okay? So you're right. You're right. Okay, so now, think about this. We know that really average in designing a cockpit is no different than designing our instruction for all of our variables. Now, does that mean that you have 35 kids or 135 kids that you're going to be every single one of them? No, we're not expecting that in terms of what lesson plans, but that's where our differentiation and our grouping and all that comes into place. And I know that secondary, once again, your secondary teachers will tell you, I don't have a clue about differentiation. I don't have a clue about grouping. I just know what my chapter says. Because we're specialists, content specialists in secondary. But we have to give them those skills. We have to give them those ability to collaborate within those VLCs. So think of a cockpit, think of a classroom. We don't design instruction on just the average. Because what are we doing for the kids coming to us knowing it? And what are we doing for the students coming to us that have some skill deficits? That's where that jagged profile comes in. And are we only talking academic? What else are we looking at? Thank you. Because guys, when we're talking MLSS, we're talking academic and behavioral. There are some babies out there that are smart, but because they're a product of their environment, you'd never know it. And that's sad. Okay? So when we're talking MLSS, when we're talking jagged profiles, we need to understand academic and behaviorally. Both. What did Todd Rose say about the number of students that are highly intellectual that drop out of school?
It was like
What did, who's, I heard somebody say,
4%.
pardon me?
4%.
And
they came up to like 50,000 a year or something.
in what grade do they normally do this? Ninth. Ninth grade is usually your biggest dropout, no matter across the board. We have Einsteins walking around our community. We have Einsteins that are homeless. Because we base everything on the myth of average. And that's why I love MLSS for this simple fact is it empowers you as the teacher. You are the diagnostician. You're not waiting on a diagnostician to evaluate every time unless it's an obvious disability, and we're not getting into that day because that's another whole baby all of its own. You know your students better than anyone. And the collaboration, there's people sitting here with so much information to share with each other, it's unbelievable. So let's tap into it and use it. Okay, so here we go. You have on your table, I have hand given you a document that has layer 1, 2, 3. Now, at the bottom of that document, you're going to see numbers, but there, oh, I'm sorry, did anyone else not receive one? But for today's purposes, I know I have numbers on the bottom of this board. If you'll please disregard that. Please disregard. You're like, oh my Lord, I'm going to have to move. No. The only thing that I will ask you is this. If you are in the very back, one of you three, if you can leave your stuff where it is, but if you don't mind joining another table, it doesn't matter which one, if you'll just come up. You can pull up a chair, you can get in with 3, you can get in with 2, over here, wherever you want to go, if you'll move in to where you can have that conversation. This is what I want you to think about. Okay? If you're at a one table, where's my, if you're at a one table or a 2 table, those align with the layers. So 1 table in 1A, you're going to look at layer 1. 2 and 2A, you're going to look Then 3 and 3A, you're dissecting layer 3. Now here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to look at it independently. Annotate it, dissect it however you want to. Then I'm going to call time. And I'm going to have you get together and you're going to create a chart paper of what did you notice? What did you see? Did you see patterns? Did you see something that you have a question about? What was a wonder? What's a thought? And I have the paper here, I'll hold it up when we get ready to do it. But what I'm wanting you to do is to dissect that layer. Now, layers 2 and 3. Layers 2 and 3, please listen. Layer 1 goes with 2 and 3 all the time. Just because they're in a layer 2 does not mean they give up layer 1. If they are in layer 3, they do not give up layer 1, which is core instruction, high quality curriculum, all of that. It's no longer they're putting that they're in that layer 3 in special ed. This is for all students. Any student can be in layer 3. Any student can be in layer 2. Okay, so dissect your layers that you were assigned.
Where are your thoughts? Where are your thoughts? Where are your thoughts? You got any finished yet? Well, no, within
They can be.
is their level. So I did one, and I and yes, I will. What are you saying?
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You draw to close your conversations. Now, this is the next move. As you're discussing these items a year later, I'm just giving you an example. You can put on your chart paper whatever you want to put on there in terms of your thoughts, your wonders, your questions, what you already knew, what you already do. But here's the deal. When you say you already do this, does every PLC understand what it is that is expected of them? Do they understand the layers? Do they understand we're not in RTI anymore? Do they understand the components of MLSS? Because if there is an answer to a no to any of those questions I asked, then we don't have this down like we need it in terms of down. I'm so sorry, I forgot to shut off my phone. We do not have that down, as I say, down. We do not have it embedded within our school. It is not part of our culture like in climate, like it needs to be. Okay, everybody has to be on board. Because I bet I can go into your school and go into a PLC, and if I ask them some questions about these layers, how they're moving them, am I going to get the answers that you know of already today? So that's why it's going to be you guys are the ones that's going to be spreading this, and you're the one that's going to be lifting it. And it's going to be a heavy lift, and it's not going to take place overnight. That's why you've got to know it, inside and out. So here's my deal. You can do that poster however you want to, and you're like, well, why are we having to put all of our thoughts and our thinking and our already done and blah, blah, because we're going to keep these posters. Next week, you're not saying a word to your colleagues. You're going to be in the groups with them, just kind of smiling and guiding them on a little bit, not giving them any feedback, and we're going to compare. Because sometimes we, as leads and leaders, we're so good at what we do. We put blinders on, and we don't see what some of our newbies bring to the table and say, well, what about that? Well, I don't know, I hadn't thought about it. And let me speak for me. I do this so much, I have blinders on. And when I listen, that's why I want y'all's conversations, because it never fails. Adult learners will always learn something, and they'll always take something away. When I leave here today, I've already learned something today since I've been here with you. And we have to have that mindset, that it's a growth mindset in our people that's coming into us, with us, and collaborating with us, and you're leading, they're going to have some insight, okay? So that's the reason we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to put it away. Glenda and Cherie will keep that for us, and then we're going to kind of do a crosswalk next week, okay? Papers, your chart papers are beside you. This one here, they're back here. There's markers. So you